Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance. In this resistance video, sponsored by contribution from Rachel, and here's her story. Hi, Ollie. Hope this email finds you well. We surely missed you, but I was happy to hear you're on your way back to health. Oh, it was a little premature there. At the end of my first video, I concluded with marrying the first asshole that asked me in order to get out from my parents' house. I found myself in another relationship with a new narcissistic abuser. I was 17 when the opportunity to get the hell out of my parents' house for good came up. During the last year with my parents, my serious relationship with my boyfriend fiance, C, had come to an end. He was there for me in so many ways, and I self-sabotaged the relationship. He and I part ways, and I was absolutely devastated. He was the only normal relationship I had in my life. My grandmother was closer to dying than I would have ever guessed at that point in my life. She was gone within a few months of our breakup. My world was in a tailspin. I ran into someone I knew from high school, and he latched on. To this day, I cannot believe how bad my self-esteem was at the time to end up married to him. We'll call him E. That's how it happens. They get you at a low point. Obviously, I had no business thinking about getting into another relationship that was serious that young. But I'm going to be honest here, Ollie. From what my mother, Helen, taught me, I needed a man to take care of me and get me away from them. Too naive to believe in myself and figure out something better that would have improved my life in some way. I had no one besides my grandmother that cared enough about me to see the potential I would eventually find later as an adult and after I moved myself to another state to get my life better. I am sure this will come as to no surprise, but my marriage to E failed pretty quickly. We got married on my grandparents' anniversary 2 months later. I was expecting my first child. This was after a couple of miscarriages, so I did everything in my power to be healthy so I could carry to term. I gave up smoking during my pregnancy, ate when I could as I had morning sickness the entire pregnancy. But I was happy for it. Every movement meant life. One thing I knew for sure was that I always wanted to be a mother. I was the oldest of my cousins on my mother's side and helped with babysitting. I think I also wanted to right the wrong done to me by making it right by being a better mother. Kind of foolish when you're only 18. My oldest daughter was born. She came into the world crying. She was weighed, and doctors completed her AP and then completed her AP still crying. Nurse handed her to my ex, still crying. She was laid on my chest. I had C-sections, so I was strapped in and didn't get to see her yet. We locked eyes and she became silent, and we fell in love at that moment. Although I had never seen a newborn baby, though, I knew something just wasn't quite right. My daughter was born with an extra piece of chromosome, and that changed my life forever, but in a good way. I was no longer an unlovable child. I was no longer an unlovable child. I was her mother, and I knew that something was very special. An extra chromosome. So she has Down syndrome. Okay. The marriage was abusive. He beat me and he cut me down. Things I thought were normal for me until I got some sense. Thank God for that. I got away, but not until after I had my second child. She was a product of a rape from my ex, but she was perfect, all 10 fingers and toes, and due to my oldest, I knew she was normal. She was around 6 months old when I left him, but the only place I had to go was my parents. Pathetic, I know. I mean, you're 18, 19. It's not, where are you going to go? I mean, based on what happened. When you marry or get into a relationship to escape your abuser, you're going to end up right back there. You're going to end up right back there. It's going to happen because you're not going to find 99.9% of the times, if you're just hooking up with somebody, looking for something in order to escape, you're going to end up back in that house. It happens every time. Because the person you're going to escape with is going to do the same thing your parents did. And they're going to leave you more vulnerable. When you get away from it's got to be on your terms. You can't be riding the coattails of someone else. It never works. Pathetic, I know. That was the absolute last place I should have gone. But I had no one. My mother decided I had to hurriedly wean my daughter off the breast and find a job as quickly as possible. I did. She was my babysitter. Between my mother and sister and my ex doing the most deplorable shit, for instance, he showed up as I was leaving for work when it was his turn with our daughters. They were babies, and he brought them to my house in his truck, meaning to drop them off on me while my ride for work was showing up, and Helen, my mother, refused to watch him. He broke out his back window of the truck, babies inside, and hopped in and sped off. We get to work, and as we were walking into the back, still shook up, there he was in the truck trying to run me down, nearly missing. We got in and made a report to all the good it did. Nothing. And his godfather was the city prosecutor and has protected him by not prosecuting the case. Bastard. During this time, living with my parents, I came home from work one afternoon to my baby being covered in these hickey-like bite marks. My oldest daughter was blamed for attacking her while my mother was supposed to be watching them. My instinct was to rush her to the children's hospital, but my mother told me it looked worse than it was and that my baby was okay. I believed her. The weekend comes and it's my ex's turn to have the girls, and I met him at the police station for a custody exchange. I told him what my mom had told me about how our baby got those marks all over, and he did what I should have. He took them to the hospital and tried to claim that I put those marks on my baby. Monday rolls around and it is family service workers at my door. I think it is important to mention this. Years prior, around the time my stepfather Rick felt me and my friend up, my mother had a hysterectomy after a few miscarriages. She approached me and asked me if I would be a surrogate for her and my stepfather. Ugh. Ugh. So what it seems like here is your mother's trying to steal your children from you and using your piece of shit ex to do it. This is why, okay, if you're gonna, when you depend on someone else to escape the narcissist, you're gonna end up back. You're gonna end up back there. You're gonna end up, and it's gonna be worse. Because you're going back there in a worse situation than what you left. Always. Actually, I was about 15 when she asked me to do this for them. Oh my God. Obviously, that wasn't happening. The thought of carrying Rick's baby batter in me was repulsive. I still get queasy just thinking about this shit. Makes me so angry. I deal with the family services worker and things are sorta okay for about a month. We have a court date for our divorce. Now, mind you, this bitch, my mother, showed no interest in attending these hearings with me because we could never just get divorced. She suddenly was worried for my safety, and my sister would watch the girls while we were at court. We get back, and again, I'm told my oldest climbed into my youngest crib and left these weird-looking bite marks all over her. Again, I was told it wasn't a big deal. DFS was already there and knew what was going on, so I don't bother taking her to the hospital. Well, So your mother and sister are probably putting these bite marks on your daughter, right? When I still wanted to go, she wasn't going to let me use the car. You should have called an ambulance then. Should have called 911. The ex stole mine and sold it to his brother for $1. I met up with my ex, and Monday rolls around and my babies aren't there. I called the social worker and she informed me my kids were in state custody. I called my lawyer and the one my parents paid for, since they didn't pay for my wedding, and we went to the first hearing. I was able to visit my kids in foster care and be a part of my oldest ongoing medical care. She had a couple of surgeries and has seen several specialists. Thankfully, my girls were in some place nice, and I got to pick them up on weekends and worked out a great visitation schedule with them. Then I find out I'm pregnant again. When I find out it was a major shitstorm in our house. I told my sister first, and she kept my secret. Then I told my lawyer, who told me I should really tell my parents because we had to tell the judge. This was not my husband's child. Oh, you're looking for somebody else to save you from this? So what, you go out and you bang someone else thinking he's going to pull you out of this situation? Is that what you thought? You're only making things worse. Why is the baby's in state custody and the father doesn't have custody? The day we are finally getting our divorce trial, the ex drops his motion for divorce. Thankfully, I countered, so we got divorced on my motion. My parents entered as a third party, and even though I was kicked out of their house the day before court, well, I told I had to find some place to go and only had a month. DFS dropped out and my parents went in. I had to again cover for what Rick had done because they convinced me it was the best way to get our babies and I could see them and get them back faster. That was a lie. After the longest day of my life, the judge finally ruled in favor of my parents. I was devastated. And if not for being pregnant again, suicide was definitely on my mind. And of course, the father left me from my so-called best friend. I know your stance on abortion, but at the time I had considered it. Rick told me he would kill me if I did. Pretty sure it was so he could keep me in the way in front of the judge so I would be single, pregnant with a third child, even though I worked a full-time job and provided health insurance for my kids. It wasn't enough. They stole my babies. And the really sad part is, I didn't think my mother was capable of this until pretty recently. I got them back, but not until the damage was done. She turned my babies on me, bringing them home infected my third daughter. I think I have to end here and go have a good angry cry about everything. As always, your take on things is appreciated. I can't go there and get my 7 pounds of flesh, and I think that is what angers me now. That lazy bitch didn't want to work. She wanted disability payments for my oldest and child support. She always took everything from me, my money, tried to fuck my male friends, and the worst, most effective was through my children. She's close to death now, and the only comfort I have is she chose my sister and Rick, and they are both pigs, and she's dying in a house of filth. Not soon enough, Allie. Your friend Rachel. This is why you can't marry your way out of the narcissist's house. You can't find a relation. You can't, because you end up in a worse situation. You're always going to end up back there. You can't. You can't just find a relation. Just find it at 18 years old, and this is what, because you were so desperate to get out of there in the first place, you end up back there in a much worse situation. So, no, I'm sorry. That sucks. I hope that helps. Thank you so much for another contribution and story, Rachel. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.